We know that strong relationships support safety and a sense of belonging. And when we have strong relationships and we feel safe, we're able to get to the top of that pyramid. We're able to learn and hopefully together because community is built on those relationships. And every person in that community is a vital piece of that community. I say this often, and I'm going to paraphrase myself here because I never remember how I say it each time, but it is the uniqueness of the individual that is the purpose of the community, the foundation of the community. Imagine if we were all exactly the same, identical. That would be so boring. And so every community is filled with unique members, and that is the special piece. It's our uniqueness that makes our wholeness unique. With an understanding of the importance of building building connections and relationships so that we can honor student voice, I want to talk about two frameworks, one that I developed and one that I did substantial research on in my doctorate. I developed the Web of Rights with a kindergarten class in when I was doing my master's in about 10 years ago. And I did extensive research on implementing the democratic school model in elementary public schools in Ontario just last year. I want to talk about these two frameworks. They complement each other. They definitely work hand in hand. So we'll start with the Web of Rights. Just a little background on how it came to be. And the specific image that you're seeing is the first iteration of the Web of Rights. When I was teaching kindergarten, which in my district is grade threes, or sorry, 3-year-olds to 6-year-olds, depending on when they were born. We could have a 3-year-old in September, and we could have a 6-year-old by January. So sitting around with a class of 29 unique little tiny children, we talked about the Web of Rights and we built the Web of Rights and we learned about the United Nations and UNICEF's rights of the child. And we walked through a whole variety of lessons and learning that you can find on the website as well through the Web of Rights implementation plan. But this is what they came up with. This is what they felt the most important rights to them were at school: play, equity, health, education, family, trust, safety. And so when we're talking about the Web of Rights, the examples that I use are going to come from that very first iteration. Done many iterations of this, and other teachers have used and built their own. It's very important that a Web of Rights is co-constructed. Otherwise, the equity of the Web of Rights, it just becomes a blanket policy again, and that's not what we want. So rights are non-negotiable. But as educators, we know how often they come in conflict. So, how do we manage and navigate rights which are in conflict? First, understanding the rights that that kindergarten class felt were the most important. And honestly, most of these rights come up in each of the Web of Rights that I've built. But safety, we all have the right to feel safe and to be safe. And we all have the right to play. That's a very important piece on the Declaration of Rights for the Children from UNICEF and the United Nations, the right to play. I like to think that as a mid 40-year-old, or as I call myself a third in the 30 teens, I also think that I have the right to play. We have the right to be unique. We have the right to equity. We have the right to dignity based on who we are, to choose our beliefs, our religions, what we want to wear, what we want to be, what our favorite food is. I have the right to have hummus as my favorite food. And it's not my job to shove hummus down your throat because it's my favorite food, because you might not like it. We have the right to be trusted and the right to be with our family or have access to our family. We have the right to feel healthy. And I hope that this shows up on every web of rights that's built in classrooms. We have the right to education, to learn things, but also to build education with the people around us. The example that stemmed from a real life example in that kindergarten class when there were some conflicting rights was this scenario. I'm going to go over it. There are three kids, and one kid loves wrestling, but doesn't like being squished. One kid hates really being touched at all and didn't want to be in altercations like that. And the third child, like he liked wrestling, a lot bigger than the other two, and loves Hulk Hogan. So these three are buddies, and whenever they had a chance, they would instigate. Some of them would instigate rough and tumble play, and child two wouldn't feel safe. But when child two was taken out of the play, they lost their right to play. And we talked about this. Rights are non-negotiable. You can't take the kid out of play because that's taking the right to play away, and rights cannot be removed. So this is where we have agreements. We have agreements about this in adult, the real world. Not that education and classrooms aren't the real world, but this is why we have stop signs and stoplights. Everyone has the right to movement. And if I'm going this way and you're going this way, and there's no stoplight, like there wasn't a stoplight in 1912 or whenever the first car accident was, you hit each other. And now our right to safety is literally smashed. So we have discussions and we come up with ideas and agreements and we put stoplights in. And so these kids had discussions and with myself and actually some other classmates about what they could do so that all of their rights were honored. Their equity was honored because two of them love to wrestle and one of them doesn't like to be touched. Their right to friendship, family was honored because they all wanted to participate together, and the right to safety was honored. And so I would imagine that if I gave you guys 2 minutes to brainstorm some ways that this situation of wrestling could continue without impeding anyone's rights, you come up with some agreements, some concessions. No, they're not concessions; they're agreements. Pretty quickly. Yeah, you're right. The child two just became the referee, and child one and three developed a safe word from my suggestion. It was avocado because I love avocados. And so if child one ever felt like, or child three, but more likely child one, ever felt like they were being squished and child three's size difference was impeding his right to safety, avocado was said. Child two would say avocado, and they would stop wrestling and start over. Pretty basic stuff. But for 3, 4, 5, and 6 year olds to walk through and understand this in such a way that they just demonstrated it on the schoolyard, it in their play was meant that we were onto something. And this really works. So moving from the web of rights to the democratic school model, um, I said at the beginning of the implementation of these two frameworks that they complement each other. The biggest piece in the democratic school model before you can implement it effectively and properly is having a very strong community that understands each individual. And so the web of rights really complements that piece of the democratic school model. So one of the reasons that I got into learning more about the democratic school model is that it was being used in small private education, private schools around the world. Sudbury schools are very democratic. And I was curious to see if we could implement the democratic school model in elementary classrooms, first of all, because the Sudbury schools that were using it were grade seven or older, basically. A lot of higher grades were using it. Um, I was curious to see if we could implement it in elementary classrooms and how low it could go. And we did find before we jump into it that grade four is kind of the low end of actually implementing the voting process if we're using votes of consequence rather than votes of with no consequence. And we'll get into that shortly. The idea of the democratic school model is that it honors student voice. The bonus of the democratic school model is that it teaches students how to be an active member and an intelligently active member of a democratic system when they are able to vote without having to, fall for those political tactics and understanding gerrymandering and when a fact is not so factual and how to have conversations about data so they can be informed democratic citizens. So that's the end goal, but the big goal is that this works. This brings down incivility in students and really helps honor the voice of students. So the flow of the democratic school model is first you got to build that community. You have to have that community very, very it's got to be strong. Everyone needs to understand each other because the main tenet of the democratic school model, once you get to that number four there, vote is everyone in the room, everyone in the community votes or has the option to vote. And it is majority rules. If nine people vote and you're only one of them and you lose 8-1, whatever was voted on happens. And so we have to have an understanding that voting and your vote isn't selfish. It's for the betterment of the community, not to support yourself. So we're going to go through the fact gathering, discuss the outcomes, vote, and reflect, and how that can go back and forth once that community is built. Obviously, building community is an ongoing thing, and the Web of Rights and lots of other frameworks, but the Web of Rights helps maintain that strong community, just as restorative practices and circles do as well. So when we're gathering facts, um, we are having community circles about this. A member might bring something forward for a vote. And the example that I'm going to use is a non-consequential vote. And these are the votes that you would use at the beginning of implementation for the democratic school model, teaching students what it's like without harming students inadvertently because they might not be ready. And so the example is where should we put the classroom garbage pail? And so I bring up the concept of I think that we need to move the classroom garbage pail. We gather some facts about the two locations that it's been in. It's been beside the door, and it's also been right beside my desk. And the facts that we have uncovered are that when it is beside the door, we are concerned that during lunch with the door open, people that are going to throw their banana peel out are a little bit more inclined to just walk out the classroom door. And that's not something that our school policy allows. The garbage pail, the facts with the garbage pail beside my desk are often when I come back, there's garbage in and around my desk because it all didn't make it into the garbage pail. So we have these conversations about where the best spot is and is there a better spot? All the members need to be included in the fact gathering such that they understand the issue and they become informed on the issue so that when they get to the vote, they can vote. Once we've gathered the facts, we walk through the potential outcomes on for each scenario. So we'll use the two scenarios: garbage pail by the door, garbage pail by my desk. What are some potential outcomes? We just talked about them. One of the potential outcomes is that Sylvia, a student who likes to wander and distract other classrooms is more likely to leave the classroom. And the garbage pail by my desk is more likely to uh, make my desk space dirty. So we need to be very transparent in this process, giving all members a chance to not only discuss and brainstorm, but basically understand what their vote is going to imply. And then we vote. And the only thing that is important about votes where you, as the moderator of the vote, uh, you might at some point when it is a vote of consequence say we're going to have a secret ballot. I don't need you and you and you to know that you don't like Johnny if that's what the vote is about. It's a silly vote, but maybe a consequence for what Johnny did on the schoolyard, because that's what the democratic school model moves towards. Consequences can be voted on by the school community. It's a wild thought, but that's where it gets to. When your community is strong enough, you can bring, and I've done this in schools. When your community is strong enough, you can have votes where students are deciding low-level consequences for incivility or misbehavior on the schoolyard or in classrooms. And that's something you might want to have a secret ballot on, but open ballots are often okay. And in this case, when you're trying to help students understand the process of the democratic school model, but where the garbage pail goes, no one's getting hurt in this vote. Having an open vote is important because people can look around and see which students are maybe being silly and are not taking this seriously and need a little bit more coaching on the impact of their vote because it's important. Then you have the vote and majority rules. So majority rules, and the garbage pail goes on my desk. On my desk. That was what they voted. They voted to put it on my desk. So the garbage pail goes on my desk, and we let it roll for a bit, and then we reflect. And it's important to reflect when reflection is needed. So if the garbage pail's on my desk and there's no issues the first day, no issues the second day, maybe we don't reflect. Um, But if there's an issue on the first day and there's yogurt all over my desk and my computer's on the ground, we reflect right then and there. Did this work? The votes that you guys made, and we all saw who voted for my desk versus who voted for the by the classroom door. We all saw who voted for the silly thing. Should we vote again? Are my rights being impeded? Is this something that is benefiting everyone or the majority or the community as a whole? Probably not. Is there a way for us to improve this? Let's reflect and then go back to fact gathering, discussing outcomes. Maybe when we start discussing outcomes, we talk about closing the door. Then we vote again. And hopefully that vote is taken a little bit more seriously. And you can look around and see which students are and which students aren't. And ta-da, the garbage pail is now in a good spot. And we've walked through the democratic school model, including the reflection.